Let me read to you a passage from the 12th chapter of St. Mark's Gospel, verses 18 to 27. It's the Gospel for Wednesday of the 9th week in Ordinary Time. St. Mark writes, "Then the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him with a question. 'Teacher,' they said, 'Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies and leaves a wife, but no children, the man must marry the widow and have children for his brother.' Now there were 7 brothers. The first one married and died without leaving any children. The second one married the widow, but he also died, leaving no child. It was the same with the third. In fact, none of the 7 left any children. Last of all, the woman died too. At the resurrection, whose wife will she be, since the 7 were married to her?" Jesus replied, "Are you not in error because you do not know the Scriptures or the power of God? When the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. Now about the dead rising, have you not read in the book of Moses, in the account of the bush, how God said to him, 'I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob'? He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. You are badly mistaken." That's from Mark chapter 12, verses 18 to 27. It speaks to us of the resurrection. You know, some people, by mental temperament, are inclined to religion and to the acceptance of the reality of the unseen. They tend to think of the unseen realm as being of much greater import than this visible world of our experience. An example of this, if we are to go on his own testimony, was Cardinal Newman, beatified by Pope Benedict XVI in 2010. In his Apologia Pro Vita Sua of 1864, he speaks of his, at times, tending as a child to imagine, and I quote, "all this world as a deception." He speaks of his, and I quote, "childish imaginations which tended to isolate him from the objects which surrounded me," he says, "in confirming me in my mistrust of the reality of material phenomena and making me rest in the thought of myself and my Creator." Page 4 of the Apologia. In speaking of the intellectual influence of Joseph Butler on him, he refers to, and I quote, "the theory to which I was inclined as a boy of the unreality of material phenomena." Page 11. That is to say, for whatever reasons, he was inclined from his early years to rest in the unseen God as of greater import and substance than the world that is seen. This natural religious temperament placed him, obviously, at an advantage in respect to the formal embrace of religious faith. There are others, especially in the modern Western secular culture, in whom the opposite tendency prevails. They, from their earliest years, tend to rest only in the thought of this visible world. Even if their imaginations float above the hard, visible facts of life, still, their thoughts and reveries remain confined to this world, at least by bent. They are not by mental inclination bent towards God and religion. There are others with a more serious difficulty. Anyone who is familiar with the inner life of Oxford University in the 1820s and 1830s would know of Joseph Blanco White. He was a Spanish-born ex-Catholic priest who wrote works in England against the Catholic Church. In his book, The Present Position of Catholics, Newman considers Blanco White, who in the late 1820s had been his friend. And he shows by examining Blanco White's published works that he never had joy in religion. Newman concludes that in respect to religion, Blanco White had, and I quote, "some radical defect of mind." Our intellectual bent will assist or hinder us in coming to terms with this or that truth, whatever be the order of truth to which it pertains. A case in point is the truth of the resurrection from the dead. The study of comparative religions would suggest that the belief in a hereafter of some kind is the normal belief of man. However, there is no unanimity in respect to its nature. In our Gospel today, from Mark chapter 12, verses 18 to 27, the Sadducees approach our Lord with their objection to the doctrine of the resurrection from the dead. It would seem that the Sadducees took their stand on the inspiration of the books of the Pentateuch alone, the first 5 books of the Bible. There was no warrant in these books, so they thought, for a doctrine of the resurrection. Our Lord answered their difficulty by quoting from the Pentateuch, specifically from the book of Exodus. They understood neither the Scriptures nor the power of God, he said to them. The point here is that whatever be our particular mental temperament or intellectual bent, whatever be our assumptions and starting points, we must overcome all obstacles in the way of accepting the truth. This applies especially to the revealed truth of God. We may be inclined to religion, and this will have its own dangers. We may, on the contrary, be inclined to rest only in the things we can see. We may have even deeper difficulties with any religious truth, and the sad case of Blanco White comes to mind. But whatever be our bent, we must so act and think as to be governed by the truth. We must forego our own inclinations and so adjust as to attain the truth and be subject to it. The greater the struggle against the inner obstacles to the truth, the greater is the merit in overcoming them. Towards the end of his life, Newman wrote that our deepest assumptions and starting points are beyond our own sight and consciousness. We must ask God to implant in us, by his grace, the right starting points, the right first principles. On the basis of these, we shall be open to the truth. Our Gospel today, that I read earlier, reminds us of a great and essential truth in revealed religion. This life is not all that there is. We shall rise again in the flesh, to glory or to damnation. We have a great prospect to look forward to every day. Father Patrick Peyton, the Irish promoter of family prayer across the world some decades ago, was once asked about death. He said that he looked forward to his death. Death was the occasion when he would be going to meet God and our Lord. The disciple of Christ longs to see the face of Jesus, and this longing will be fulfilled following on death. At our death, our soul goes to meet Christ for judgment. At the end of time, we shall be reunited with our bodies and live forever thus, risen in the flesh. Let us so live as to be judged worthy of a place in the abode prepared for us by God.